of the world that like we are born and we like find ourselves into, and everyone naturally goes that way. It's like what original sin. That's like what we're talking about. And then we have this other thing. Jesus comes. And I would say God sends Jesus as like a new way. The very first church, like the very first disciples, their church was called like the way. And I think very much literally, Christianity isn't like so much of a. I think we do Christianity wrong because we think about it as like a religion, or we think about it as like.
It's not such a religion as a lifestyle.
Exactly, we think of it like the set of beliefs, like.
What? Skyline.
Well, like you talked about, like you think sometimes people talk about Christianity like I believe A, B, and C.
Let me call you back.
Like I believe A, B, and C, and so now I get to go to heaven because I like really believe those things, right? Whereas like Jesus seemed to always. I mean, he talked about believing in God, and that's important and whatever, and believing in Him. But what Jesus talked about all the time seemed to be like this whole entire different way. And I would say that's like the way of Jesus. And I would say it's like living under, and you find this all throughout the Bible if you like start studying it this way. But you find it in like the kingdom of God. Is that like we're living under like a new kingdom. Like when Christ came, we live under that authority of like the things that He said. We're no longer living like under the authority, and like we're no longer living this way. We're living this way. And there's like corporate. Some people say, let's say social, like all of society, right? Social, right? And then we have Chris. What are the words? I always get the words wrong.
Justice.
We have justice. And we have
righteousness.
Oh yeah, justice and righteousness. I always put different words to them.
For some reason, I'm not surprised.
Okay, so individual. Let's take this. And so I think what Jesus came is to make all things new, to give us a new way of living, and then He came to like take care of all these things. And in the way of the world, we have individual. One of these is like this box, this box is like so legitimate and so true and so there. I'm not saying this box isn't there. Like, if you hear anyone talk about people talk about Christianity as like my individual relationship with God, but Christ also says it can't just be about that. Jesus said when Jesus was asked to like summarize everything, He said it has to be these two things. He didn't say just this one thing. It's about an individual's relationship with God and an individual's relationship with neighbors. So that box needs to be taken care of. With neighbor. And some people, and there's a lot of people we know who like could give or care less about God. Like I would say, you're videotaping this. I know people. I'm gonna start like naming family members. Okay, but like some people treat other people better than any Christians ever. You know, some people fail in this box and pass this box. But then there's this other thing, which a lot of churches I would say do a really bad job of, which is social, which is all of us. Let's say all of our relationship with God as a group. You see this like all throughout the Old Testament. It was all about the Israelites' relationship with God. It wasn't necessarily like God wasn't like, oh, this one dude did this thing, so let me bless him and punish this guy. And it was like you as a nation, and we read it in Revelation with all those churches, like Church in Laodicea, you guys are screwing up, or like this group of people, you're screwing up. So like as a group of people, let's say as Sawmill Covenant Church, or as the Church of North America, or as Church in Columbus, Ohio, like as a group, our relationship with God, like we need to come together and worship God as a group, as a collective group. But we also need to, as a collective, like love our neighbor, And Jesus says, like, who's your neighbor? The least of these, like the people who have, people like Jesus. They ask Jesus that, like, who's your neighbor? And Jesus tells them a story about how this, about their enemy, like the people they kind of hate. Right. I can't think of anyone. Well, you could just say like terrorists, radical Islam, extremist terrorists that want to blow us up every day. Like, it'd be like, Jesus, who's my enemy? Who do I need to love? And then he'd be like, radical Al-Qaeda Islamic terrorists who want to blow you up. You need to love those people. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, that's who like neighbor is. As a vegetarian.
VeggieTales is good. I know, because it like breaks it down.
And so like, this is what the whole thing is like. You'll hear so many people talk about God and Jesus and faith and like what it's all about. And those like, if you listen, you'll hear one of these boxes or maybe like two of these boxes. But the whole thing, I think, And this is the thing I think Donald Miller is talking about, is like, he's talking about protests and we need to fix it with ourselves and that kind of stuff, is that this, I think Jesus came to like make this whole box, I would say, fixed. Jesus came to fix individual relationship with God, individual relationship with neighbor, groups relationship with God, and group, like, just even humanity. You know, you read like what heaven will be like, or what it will be like when Christ comes again, and all that's fixed and made new. Everybody will be reconciled with God, and everybody will live like in harmony, peace with one another. And so I think we're like living in way of the world. You know, like, that's so evident all around us all the time. People trying to get more and more for themselves, while there's like hungry people all over the world. But Jesus says, hey, there's a whole new way. I'm fixing freaking everything. Like, I'm totally fixing everything. I'll probably draw